Well, how you doing? Let me tell you something. I love Joe Weider. And you know when you say you love a man, you're not a man. But I'm a man. This man is my life. When I got out of high school, I think I won the New York City contest. And I'm waiting for the post office for a short while, and they laid us off. So I said, let me go see if I can get a job with Weider. Because I know Joe was making bodybuilding acceptable, because at that time, it was ruled by Bob Hoffman, the amateur athletic union. He had contempt for bodybuilders. He was into weightlifting. So he always made bodybuilders like cater to him to get ahead. So I went to Joe, and we clicked right on. Joe says, yeah. I said, Joe, I need a job. And I didn't think he had anything for me. He said, yeah, you're working like Stockton? He said, I'll tell you something. Stick with me, and you'll make $2.25 a week. And $225 a week in the 50s was a good salary. And I said, $2.25 a week? Fine. He said, okay. So I started working in it. And first of all, when I went to his office, it wasn't an office. It was a warehouse. It was 16 Hopkins Avenue. It was a warehouse, and I didn't see any sign, anything saying Joe Weider. And I said, is it? But I went inside, and then, of course, we connected. Right away, we connected. He seemed to connect with me. And he said, well, but one thing was important to Joe, loyalty. Because he always felt people were trying to get over on him, you know. He said, I want you to stick with me. I said, okay. But things were tough. People don't realize in those days, he was struggling. They see him now, the big man he is today, and they think he was born like that. It was a struggle. The payroll check used to bounce. That's how bad things were. At that time, we couldn't even afford a truck. And you had to take the cable packages that we used to sell, the cable equipment, to the post office to be mailed. And I used to use my car to take it to the post office. And so business started to improve. So I had to use, instead of going once a week, I had to go twice a week, 3 times a week, and loaded up the car. And the springs broke. So I said, Joe, you can't use my car anymore. You got to get a truck. And Joe said, okay, you get it. But I never said, Joe, give me extra money for gas. Joe, I'm putting in more time. Because Joe was my friend. Joe never hired me as an employee. It was a friend. He was a friend from the beginning, and that's what I love about him. And so as things went on, things were, not too great, but they were improving. And Joe says, I'm going to put you on the cover. I said, what? Now, this was in the 50s, before the Civil Rights Movement. You didn't put black men on the cover of the National Magazine. You just said, do it. You're guaranteed to lose money. So I said, Joe, come on, Joe. I said, come on, you're going to lose money. He said, you deserve to be on the cover. I said, your accountants told you no. He said, yeah, I know, but you deserve to be on the cover. That's okay, Joe. Then I just think this is saying something to make you feel good. That's okay. So I said, Leroy, I want you to go at 9 o'clock in the morning. I want you to meet me at the beach. Lon Hannigan was his photographer then. He says, I want you to bring a pair of white trunks and take a picture for the cover. I was thinking, hey, come here, Joe. And see, what Joe liked about me, I engaged him. One thing about Joe, you got to engage. He doesn't like anybody that sits back, and I always engage. He used to say, because he liked to give his speeches and things, and I would always say, that's, wait a minute, Joe. He said, oh, God, they hard. He would say, why does he hard? But yeah, he keep on boosting me too hard. That's what he liked. But in any case, getting back to the story, he says, I'm going to put you on the cover. That's okay. I forgot about it. Then, I think a few months later, he came, he said, here's the proofs. And I was looking at his t-shirt. I said, why do you do this? I mean, I used to tell him when we were growing up, why are you doing this? I just didn't understand. Because you know what I told him? Right? I don't want to be. I don't want you to lose money for me. I don't give a shit. Students especially. And I really did. And he said, you know, this bodybuilders don't hold them off and put them on the cover. And I bought it the next day, it wouldn't be a paper kid. And he not impressed me, but I let him. And anyhow, of course, a lot of the books, they wouldn't even explain in this other part of the country. And that infuriated Joe. So I said, those bastards. And he said, they wouldn't even show it. I said, Joe, they would send the magazines back. Because Joe still had that when he hadn't moved his building yet. They would send the magazines back, unopened, not on display. And it was, I looked at him in such feeling, this man, he loves bodybuilding. So I thought that was there to me as far as the cover. Next thing you know, Leroy got you on the cover. I said, what are you doing? It was fascinating to me, you know. In any case, going on, Joe says, Leroy used to call me, he says, you're coming along great. I like the way your body's looking. He said, we're going to win we're going to win this universe. He says, you'll win it. He said, I want you to train. I want you to get in shape. And I want you to win the universe. I said, okay. But the bad thing happened. On vacation, I got my ankle severed in a motorcycle accident. And I couldn't compete. That was really my competition. So he was so disappointed. See, Joe liked it. When Joe gets involved, he gets involved. And it reminds me of Arnold. Because it reminds me of Arnold because, you know, I had finished competition and getting back, you know, I'm going back and forth. My brain is ahead of my mouth. I opened up, Joe, well, get about it. After I hurt myself, Joe says, I said, Joe, I got to do something. What I'm going to do? He said, why don't you write articles for me? I said, Joe, I don't know anything about writing. He said, all you got to do is put down, you run your mouth around here somewhere, put that down on paper. He said, put that down on paper and you'll do fine. That's what you go open the door for you. But they're not going to push you to it. They'll tell you, do, and you better do. If you don't do, you got to use it. So that's okay. Start writing down articles. You see very well. So then he says, Leroy, I'm moving to California. Now, that's after we were growing then. You know, notice I said we. But still, I mean, we were growing then. He built his own building with his name on it, Weider Enterprise, and I was so proud. Because it wasn't working for somebody, it was a friend. I mean, he treated me just like a friend. And I never even dreamed of working for him, even though I know I was. In any case, he says, why don't you open a store selling my goods? I said, what? See, all these things, he just, I said, I don't know anything about business. He said, we got to learn. I said, what? He said, I'll help you out. And I did tremendously well. She was so proud of that. Then, before that, he says, hey, you know, I want you to meet Arnold. I said, Arnold? He was coming up, but I didn't, you know, it was like, I said, I don't know what you thought. He said, well, Arnold's other one, Arnold wants to meet you, and Arnold's other one. And Arnold was, you know, no name like he's today, of course. So I was shocked. When Arnold came to my house, I said, well, I invited him to dinner. And I was like, not impressed at all. You know, I hadn't met him yet. So I said, okay, let him come over for dinner. So he came over for dinner, and I was like shocked at the way he walked in like he knew me for years. He took right over. I was looking at him. I mean, he just, I said, and then he says, I'm going to be a star. And I laughed. I said, what did you look? I said, you're a star. I said, you can't speak English. And he knows. I told him that. He remembers. I said, they don't have any more parts for U-boat capture. You know what U-boat was? A lot of people don't know what U-boat. That was the German submarines in the Second World War. Very, very efficient and sinking Allied ships, and they were called U-boats. And the German captains of those U-boat captains, and I told on us to go. You know how many more boats U-boat captains? And never dreamed in my wildest that he would come up to be the way he is. You know, and him and I used to be, you know, the way he is, all like stick sharp. And you know what it is? He has ambition and ability. Some people have ambition, don't do it. Yeah, both. And I don't want to succeed at anything he did. But the point simply is, getting back to my friend, I just brought that in because even with Arnold, as great as he's done, Joe was the foundation. And Joe was the foundation. I don't know where I would be today. Joe was my brother, my mother, my father, my sister, my brother, because I always think, where would I be today? Because I mean, I had no vocation. I didn't, you know, I went to high school. I went to City College for 6 months, be a lawyer, ran out of money, couldn't do that, went to the post office, worked 6 months. I told Charlotte when I came that I'm a windbag. And you have to cut me short. But let me just cut this short. This man rescued bodybuilding because bodybuilding was considered a cult. And the Joe came along and glamorized it. And when he started to glamorize it, they all competed to